All right, this is the help video to get you started on the kinematic and force equations practice. And when you open the assignment, you're going to see that you're going to be able to open up this slideshow. And we're going to have you go ahead and click on Present. And we're going to walk through the various slides and kind of talk about what it is that we're seeing here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the first slide. See here. And our first slide is on constant motion. Now you notice I've got my paper right here, and what we want to do is we're going to take some notes. And so I would suggest doing this. We'll go ahead and put a triangle down. And we're going to put the letters in here, so D, V, and T. And then what I usually like to do is I like to use the units and make sure that we know we generally talk about this in meters, we talk about this in meters per second, and we talk about this in seconds. And then this is called our constant motion. And this is D equals V T, okay? The time symbol is in there. It's not an X, it's actually a time symbol. And so I usually just write the variables like this. Now again, this says that if I want to find the velocity, I just take the distance and divide it by the time. If I want to find the time, it's the distance divided by the velocity. And if I want to find the distance, it's the velocity times the time. So this isn't new. We've seen this before. Now there's a description for what D equals, what V equals, and what T equals. And you want to make sure that you write down a little bit of description here to help you remember. And remember that when we're using these formulas, we want the length unit to match. So this is where we want to make sure that this is in meters, this is in meters, this is in seconds, this is in seconds. After you've got your notes done for that, put a dark line there, and then let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And so we'll go ahead and advance to the next slide, and you can see that this one is on changing motion. So we're going to go ahead and put in a triangle. That's going to be triangle V. So that's a delta V. This is acceleration. This is time. And again, our units are going to be meters per second squared, and seconds squared. And again, this is for changing motion. And there is this delta V equals AT, and then delta V equals VF minus VS. Now this is really saying the final velocity minus the starting velocity. And again, we should probably say what each of these is. So this is where you're going to read and take your own little notes for what each of these values are. So this is now equation number 2. We'll go down to the next one. Okay, and this one is another changing motion one. So we're going to put the triangle down here. And this one's a little trickier. So we've got D, we've got a half A, we've got T squared, and this is going to be in meters per second squared. This is going to be in seconds, and this is going to be in meters. So this is one that when we look at this one for changing motion, we have D equals 1/2 AT squared. When we want to solve for A, we're going to take the D and divide it by T, but this is one where we're going to have to remember to times by 2. So I'm going to show this one again. So if we do 2D divided by T squared, that's equal to A. And we've seen this before. We had to use this in the last lab, I think we did. When we do the T, okay, T is equal to D over half of A, but here we're going to have to take a square root of it. So you do have to be careful with this one. And again, we should write down what D equals, what A equals, and what T equals, because those are the three variables that we like to use. Okay, next one. So this is a net force one. So this one, we're going to, oops, I see I'm getting off my paper here. I'm going to slide it up there so we can see those. That was from the last one. All right. Now the next triangle is F net, M, and A. And again, this is going to be in newtons. This is going to be in kilograms. And this is going to be in meters per second squared. So acceleration is the one that kind of ties a lot of these together. So we like to make sure that we know acceleration's there. And this is for our net force. Net force. And this is F net equals MA. And again, now we're looking at F net. What is that F net? What is the M? And what is the A? And again, now when we're into newtons, we have to have kilograms. We have to have meters per second squared. It's the only way that we actually end up getting newtons. So be careful with this one. And then I think we've got one more that we're going to look at. Okay, and this is the weight one. So we call this F of G. That stands for the weight, and that's going to be in newtons. And again, this is mass in kilograms. And this is G for gravity. Okay, so G now is for gravity because gravity is a type of acceleration. So this is our weight. And this is F of G equals mg. And again, you're going to write down what F of G stands for, what M stands for, and what G stands for. So these are your notes, and that's what you're expected to do first, is go through the slideshow and take out your notes. And this is going to be something you're going to want to have handy when you do the rest of the activity. Now when we get out of our slideshow and we do the rest of the activity, you're going to see that you'll have a set of problems to work on. Okay, and we're going to follow a guess method. Now I want to just go back here, make sure, I think I left off my last slide, what is the guess method? And so this is where we have given values. These are where we're going to list all the variables that we see. We're going to say what the value is, make sure we put the units on it. We're going to list what the unknown is, what are we looking for, and make sure we put a question mark with the unit. Pick an equation from our formula sheet, and then we're going to set our numbers up and solve it. Okay, so that's kind of our guess method. I'm going to switch over now to that sheet, and you can see that we've got like 20 questions that I want you to kind of work through. And you're going to have to kind of go through this process of picking out the unknowns and what the givens are. So like I'm going to take, let's just start with like number 4. Okay, so I'm going to look at number 4 right now. And this is what you're going to do on your sheet. You're going to want to list out number 4. And again, we're going to read through it. It says a car with a mass. So M is the symbol that represents mass. And it's 1,200 kilograms. And it accelerates. So we have an acceleration of 2.75 meters per second squared. The units are important. They are going to help you figure out what the variable is. And it says it accelerates. What is the net force? So I'm looking for the net force. Put a question mark. We label that in newtons. Acting on the car during the acceleration. So there you go. I went through, picked out my variables and my labels. So now I'm looking for an equation. And it looks like I'm going to use this one right here because it's my net force equation. So I'm going to set it up, and this is where you can choose. I like to still do it in terms of write the equation down. So net force equals mass times the acceleration. I have the mass, I have the acceleration. So now I'm just going to substitute in my things to set it up. So net force equals my mass times my 2.75. And this is where I'm okay with dropping the labels at this point, because you need to know what you're going to add back in on the end. Then we just grab a calculator and we do the math. So we're going to get an answer of 3,300 newtons. Put a box around it. There we go. We have our answer with our label on it. Okay, and then so all you're going to do is you're going to work through those. Now, you'll be able to see the answers as well, so you'll be able to make sure to go through and check your work. But I am giving credit only if I see this kind of level of work on the problem. So you'll get 1 point for each of these. Make sure you label everything out. Make sure you pick out your formula, set it up, and solve it. All right, good luck, and if you have questions, just ask.